if we don't really connect to our own body and really understand where we live, what the soil is like, what kind of terrain we have around us, what our lifestyle is, if we don't connect to that, then we won't have our own internal compass.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Food Matters podcast, your home for nutrition, health, and wellness education. My name is Laurentine. I am a filmmaker and a nutritionist and the founder of foodmatters.com, and I'm here to hold your hand on this journey to optimum health, transformation, and emotional healing.
Hi, it's James here, and welcome to this next episode in the Masterclass series. My guest today is Chef Susan Teton. Chef Teton was a huge part of the early journey of FMTV, which was an online health and wellness channel that we built. And this had over 1,800 titles and 900 hours of content. And she was one of the key chefs in the program, teaching people how to ferment foods and make healthy dinners and meals and snacks and dips and salads and desserts. And she has now become a voice for women and men who are looking to age with grace. Because I don't really believe in this whole idea of anti-aging. I think aging is normal. We are designed to age. We have to acknowledge our impermanence as humans. However, we can age with grace. We can age better. We can age with more energy and more vibrance and more vitality and more physical mobility. It's not a death sentence. It's actually an invitation for us to step up our mental and physical practices to improve our quality and length of life. Now, before we get started, what ways might you be suffering from aging and that it's impacting you negatively? It is a normal part of our process of living. And so have you noticed as you've gotten older, what are some of the things that you're suffering from? Maybe not recovering very fast from exercise, maybe knee or joint pain. Maybe you have skin spots or wrinkly skin, or just maybe a more closed outlook on the world or a more closed mental outlook on your potential as an individual. Be honest. Write down some of the ways that you potentially are limiting yourself or that your body is actually physically limiting you right now. That'd be great. No matter what age, whether you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, we're all older than we were the year before. And so age does have an impact on us. Now, what would it be like if some of those things ceased to exist? What if you were able to liberate your mental blocks? What if you were able to experience more mobility and less pain and were able to move more? What would you do more of? Would you hike that mountain that you had on your bucket list? Would you do that cross-country trip, or would you just be more active on a weekly basis and maybe play more sports with your grandkids or your children or in your group of friends? Would love to hear from you on that. So let's get started with today's masterclass. I'm excited for all the practical takeaways you're going to have from Susan, and I'll come back to you at the end and we can wrap up with some takeaways. Susan, hello. It's so great to have you here.
Aloha, James. This is such my pleasure. Yeah. Especially since, this good amount of time has gone by.
Yes, I know, 15 plus years. So Susan, tell me how you got started, where you currently based out of and have been for many years, and how you came across how our journey started. That's fun as well.
Well, because I've just turned 77 years old, my journey with food is long. Yeah, it has quite a history. But I live in Maui, Hawaii, on the island of Maui, and I moved here right about the time I met you. I think it was like in 2006. And I had just finished my career with John Robbins, who wrote Diet for a New America, and I worked all through the 90s. And what I was doing was advocating for healthier food in schools. And we authored a book, and we traveled the country, and we did some studies with actually serving kids plant-based foods, and also creating a curriculum that really connected them to the larger societal issues around food, because kids were mostly, all they were being taught was about carbohydrates and proteins and things like that, and sugar. But they really didn't understand what their food choices had to do with the rest of their lives, what was going on in the environment, and also in the future of their health and the threats that might lay ahead. And so we were very, very successful at creating a curriculum that really worked. So things happened and life changes, and I left EarthSave, I think right about 2000, and it started put some together some grants and started doing some pilot projects in schools. But basically, what I learned all through those years was I learned how to cook, and I learned how to travel, and I learned how to go to the little teeny mom and pop, mostly, a few Whole Foods were around, stores, and learned and went to all the natural products trade shows for years, and learned from the greatest manufacturers and the doctors and the scientists that they were bringing on board to develop these new products and understand the depth of nutrition a lot more than the public knew. So I had created this wonderful repertoire inside myself, and kind of didn't know what to do with myself at another change that came along in my life. And when I lectured across the country, people would say, "God, I really hear you, but I don't know what to do with. I just don't know what to do with with vegetables." And I kind of didn't know where to start. And so I produced this DVD series that was all about raw food, because I had learned raw food about 20 years earlier and nobody knew what it was. But I knew that it held a key, because there's methods in the culinary practice of raw food that are extremely powerful to mix in with your cooked foods. And so I created the DVD series, as you know, Raw Food, all about the basics, just if you really understand nuts and seeds, how to blend them, make great desserts, fermentation, fermented vegetables, and that went on to expand. And then I mixed raw and cooked together, and created quite a few different series. And then I wondered, okay, I packaged them, and I thought, okay, I moved to Maui and thought, okay, now what do I do with these? And that was just about the time, the whole internet thing was expanding, and there was Facebook just came on the scene, and thank God you did, because I had a difficult time with my voice. I couldn't tell everybody. They didn't always believe me. I was always the weirdo. And so when you came along with Food Matters, I was so thrilled, because now I had a tool that I could give to people. And that's what I did. And then, you asked me for my DVDs, and my career was launched as a coach and a teacher and a chef and all things food.
That's so amazing. And I remember those days so well when, we were first in discussions and we were looking at your DVD series, Essential Cuisine, and it was such a powerful series and so many great recipes. And it was at the time when we were starting to distribute DVDs to places all over America, and then and Australia and Europe and the UK, and then also start the process of digitizing everything, Susan. I mean, I just thinking back as you reflect on your journey, this was at a time when DVDs were also starting to die, in 2012, 2014. And it's like, wow. And then Netflix stopped sending DVDs in the mail, or kept that going, but started doing digital, and Food Matters. The film went onto Netflix, and then we started FMTV. And as a streaming TV channel, your series was so successful on there. People loved it so much, and your positive attitude. And, we would all laugh when you would have a sip of wine in the kitchen as you're cooking. And it was so fun and like really beautiful and expressive. And, and, and this was, it was such a really powerful time. And I'm so grateful that we came together. And I forgot that it was John that connected us, because, well, that you had this connection to John, because we've since worked with John, and he's in our Transcendence docuseries, episode 5 of season 1. And we're also working with him on another project, a film project, which will be coming out soon. So really exciting how these worlds intertwine and weave together. And so grateful to be reconnecting with you, and grateful for the work that you do. So I wanted to ask, you've been working with nutrition for so many years. Why is it so important to care for your body at all stages of your life? And how important is nutrition in that equation?
Oh, It's so much more than food, James. It really is. There, I must go back to Diet for a New America and John Robbins, because that book had a lot of facts in it, about food and the larger societal issues like the environment. But more than that, it had heart, and it really had soul in connecting us to what food is and who are we on this planet right now. And food is like everything. It's like probably the most intimate act that we do on a daily basis. And it was put here by the Creator to nourish us and to help us grow. And without it, we don't live. So it's a pretty valuable sustenance. And sadly, our food can be almost the most poisonous thing we can eat as well, with the way that it's manufactured now, many of the methods that it is grown with, or how it's grown, and the pollution and the toxins that are put into the food additives that are put into shelf-stable food. They can be as poisonous as nourishing our good foods. And I feel that everyone knows what healthy food is. Ask a sixth grader, but they really don't know the power. It's just so dramatically powerful. And I loved when your film came out, Food Really Matters.
Nice. And how has your dietary approach maybe changed over the years? Because, you had some raw food, recipes that you were working on, and then some cooked foods, and it was mostly, if not exclusively, plant-based. And, how has your diet evolved? Has it changed over the years as you've, moved on into this graceful age of 77? You look fabulous. Has it changed, and has your philosophy to diet changed? And do you think that that's also important? Does diet change as we grow and age?
Absolutely. And yes, my diet's changed many times, many times. When I first was awakened to the power of food, well, actually, my son was 10, and he had terrible allergies. And I put him on what you call an elimination diet and just took out chemicals and food colorings and foods at the time that were known to be allergic kind of foods, milk and orange juice and peanut butter. I don't know why, but anyway, those were the foods. Anyway, he changed into a different human being. So I became, within 2 weeks. And, this ADHD thing and all of this has so much to do with the foods and the chemicals that are in foods that children are eating. And that's a much bigger story. But when I read Diet for a New America, I became a vegan overnight. And I was always very food conscious because I was vain. So I was always on a diet. I always wanted to be, I never wanted to be heavy. I always wanted to be able to have a slim figure. And I was an athlete. And so I was always into dieting, but I didn't really understand food until I read Diet for a New America. So I was a vegan for a few years. And over the course of that time, and after I left, and raw food, I was a raw food vegan for like 2 years. I just thought it was terrible to eat cooked food. I've changed quite a bit. And so over the years, I've definitely been trying different diets. I have. And as the fad diets have come along, I definitely look at them as well. And what I found, and when I work with my clients, is that every single one of these diets, whether it's paleo or, from one extreme to the other, and I'd say in the last 10 years, every single one of them have one element in common. And that is that they eat fresh, organic food grown from the earth, and so my motto has been eat from the earth, not the factory. And the fad diets really work for some people, but not for others. And that's a bigger story if you want to get into that. But I definitely tried some of them and have just come back to my own balance, which I think is so important for everyone to do. It's why I love your course, because if people can really learn nutrition, the basics of nutrition, and really understand it, and then connect to their own selves, because a fad diet may not be good for, you. It depends on what age you are, where you live, what your lifestyle is like. what kind of conditions you might have health-wise. It just really, everybody is so different. And I think we need to really connect to ourselves and really know the basics of nutrition. So if we do try a fad diet, let's say, okay, that looks really interesting and that might work for me. And you try it and then it's pretty strict and maybe it doesn't work for you. Then you kind of don't know where to turn unless you really understand nutrition. And I think that's really vital.
Really great point. Thank you. And I totally agree. When I first studied nutrition, and since building this nutrition certification program with 47 plus world experts, the idea expanded my horizons. And I think sometimes when we read one book or one idea, we get caught up in a fad. We get caught up in one single way of looking at food, whether it's low carb or no carb, or high fat or low fat, or raw foods or vegan. But there's this whole story of nutrition and the whole story of our biochemical individuality, and this whole story of our lineage, and this whole story of where we live, and this whole story of what's available locally. And then you start to piece all that together, and then you start to build a nutrition story for yourself. And I think this is the big aha moment that many people come to after years of experimenting. And why is it, do you think, that some fad diets work for some people and sometimes they don't work for other people? What is that?
Well, that's a great question. We're all different. We're just all different, and we have different lifestyles. For me, like, I tried eating a lot more animal foods because I was really having some struggles a few years ago. I got shingles, and it took me down. I really lost a lot of weight. And I remember a person I was working out with said, you need to eat a lot more protein when you're older. You need more protein. And so I tried this, but it just didn't work for me over a period of time. First of all, that kind of animal protein just doesn't sit well with me. And I was always wanting a little more carbs. And then I learned that I actually can gain a little bit more weight if I put more whole grains and more fruits and more vegetables. And why they don't work is I just think it's because we're all so individual and we live in different places. And like I said earlier, if we don't really connect to our own body and really understand where we live, what the soil is like, what kind of terrain we have around us, what our lifestyle is, if we don't connect to that, then we won't have our own internal compass, which is it's just paramount. It's vital. We have to be able to intuit and know what feels good in our body, as long as we follow, the parameters of eating from the earth, not the factory. And what I say about animals or grass-fed, any kind of animal products, that if you're going to eat them, make sure that they're produced correctly, number one, and they're as healthy as you want to be. Like Nourishing Traditions is all around raw milk, and raw milk is a completely different situation than pasteurized milk. So it may not be that milk is so bad. It's that pasteurized milk is highly an allergen because it's so difficult to digest. So, there's so many variations in that area. So it's really important to understand nutrition and understand yourself.
Beautiful. I love that. And it's so true. There's so many nuances. Like, to say that all animal products or dairy is bad is not understanding what different types could exist within that range. So that's very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about aging now, because that's the center and focus of this conversation. What are some of the things that cause accelerated aging, that can cause people to have poorer quality skin, or feel more fatigued, or more brittle bones, or not feeling strong? What are the key causes of accelerated aging, in your opinion?
Well, diet, I would say, is number one. I am still blown away by friends of mine or people that I know well, and I watch what they eat, and they think they're eating healthy. And I guess that I'm a little odd in the way that I'm pretty impeccable about my food choices, but but I would say food is number one. And also, I mean, how we're growing food and where you live, and that's important, but not, I don't think, nearly as important as medications as well. And certainly medications have their place, but I see so many people that are taking 10 medications a day and bypassing the relationship that they have with themselves and food, when food can be just the most incredible healer there ever is, or cleansing. And so when you just don't have that relationship with yourself and understand the greater societal issues, you go to a medicine that just is supposed to be a quick fix, and it might make you feel better, but it's having to go through your liver and transfer all through your body, and there are side effects. And I see so many people with horrible arthritis. They have such a hard time walking. They're on many medications they're depressed. And I live around a lot of older people, and I don't have any arthritis whatsoever. I can, do a round of strenuous yoga, and I can think pretty clearly. And I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying that it really matters how you take care of your health to how you're going to age.
Absolutely. And, I see that medication use is such a modern phenomena, really. If we think about the last 80 to 100 years, there's been the advent of so much modern medicine. And I really agree with what you say. Critical life-saving emergency care and access to life-saving antibiotics or short-term use of certain types of medication. But it's this long-term 6, 8, 10 medications, like you said, which can have a really powerful and profound negative impact over time. Tell me, there's one thing you said there about toxicity and the buildup of toxins. Do you think has a big component when it comes to aging? Things like toxins from smoking or poor quality water or too many medications, for that matter, could contribute to aging. And what can people do if they are feeling over toxic and they have too much toxins in their body?
Well, of course it does. It just does. There's all of these things contribute. And when I say, it's toxins that are coming into the body. And just let's take pharmaceuticals, and not to put pharmaceuticals down, but they're a great example, because when you hear an advertisement about one, it'll say all the repercussions it could have, or the downsides. Well, more than likely, still, they're having to take this foreign object into their body, and it has to, go through the liver and the kidneys. And then you have this other thing that's happening, particularly on Maui, where I live, as I'm around fields that were grown sugarcane that no longer exists, but it used to be sprayed with glyphosate before they would harvest it, and then they would burn it, and it would go into the atmosphere, and we'd all be choking to death, Now they don't grow sugarcane anymore, but the fields, 37,000 acres in the middle of this land, are just left dormant. And so the wind blows and is blowing this all around us all the time. Well, what blows here blows where you live. This is one earth, one system. And we need to take that into consideration, that we sadly have a lot of things coming at us at once. And we have to, what one of my teachers says is the golden ratio. The more we can take what's hurting us away, and the more we can put in what gives us nourishment, I think that a lot in aging too, we need to really nourish ourselves. We need to have high quality food, lots of antioxidants, lots of colors, good sources of protein, clean water, and keep our body moving. And but food plays a paramount role, not just, in my opinion, because it's food and that you put it in your mouth, but the relationship. When you understand the relationship to yourself, and I mean, we're miracle beings. It's incredible what we can heal and what we can do. And I think as seniors, or 50-year-olds, 30-year-olds, I mean, look ahead and think, how do I want to be? How do I want to be in these coming years? Do I want to show up and be of service and be of joy enjoy my wisdom years, or do I want to be hooked up on machines and taking a lot of pills and not being able to move very well, or worse, be in chronic pain?
It's such a powerful idea. For sure. I mean, you started to touch on some food categories there: antioxidants, good quality protein, etc. Could we get a little bit granular for a minute here? What would you, if you had to give us a list of what are the top foods to eat specifically for to age gracefully, let's say. Let's not say reverse aging. I think that's a bit of a misnomer. I think we are going to age. We do age. That is part of life. Um, However, how can we age gracefully? What are the top foods on your list that people should consider including on a daily or frequent basis?
Well, can I start with what they should really avoid?
Yeah, let's do that first, of course.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah,
What should
yeah,
they avoid?
yeah. Because I just want to start with bad fats. We all know
Yeah.
sugar and gluten are problems, but bad fats are what I've noticed sneak into everybody's diet and they think they're eating well. Let's take chips and crackers, for example. And the courses that I've been doing on aging on purpose with the people I've been working with various different races and ethnic backgrounds, chips are the biggest problem with all of them. Everybody wants to sit and munch. I was a little shocked. But if you if you read the label on most your chips, even if they're organic, and your crackers and all of these things, many of them have sunflower oil and canola oil on them, and they're not organic. And these are what we call fats that are really omega-6s are really not very good for us. And most of us have way too many bad fats. It's what started my whole cooking career. Because when you learn raw food, you learn all about good fats. And when people usually start eating like a raw food diet, they're eating all these nuts and seeds, and they're getting these incredible nuts and seeds without being processed. Because your fats, let's just go a little bit of a lesson. What you want to get is your essential fatty acids. They're essential. We do not make them. You must get them from food. And they're highly volatile to heat and light. So they go rancid very easily. And so a rancid fat is not going to do you any good whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it's just going to accumulate and cause inflammation. So when you look back at your canola oils and your salad dressings that are all pre-made, your crackers and chips and things like that, and even dried fruits. If you'll notice, many of the bags of dried blueberries or whatever fruit it is, they're laced in sunflower oil. So this is the area, it's crazy. And so this is the area where I think it's really the biggest problem that people aren't seeing.
Hmm. I 100% agree. And I've seen it even in many nut milks and many bars, like these healthy bars that people are eating. And all these vegetable oils have made their way in a ubiquitous way. They're everywhere now in our food supply. And this food product, really, these highly processed vegetable oils, never really existed for a long period of time. I mean, I toured an olive oil factory in Spain when I was there last year, and they had an ancient olive oil press, and it was like 100 years old, and they were saying this is one of the oldest ones that exists, and really our history of pressing oils and extracting oils from certain nuts, seeds, etc. is recent. And there's certain oils which are safer. I'd love for you to speak about them. But then we've gone and processed huge amounts of canola, soybean oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, etc., rapeseed oil, and these vegetable oils as a category have made their way into so many processed foods. And I agree that even healthy foods have these oils in them, and it's just a joke. And the smell from these fried foods is so addictive. A friend of mine went to a football match in Australia here just the other week, and she said there was just so many overweight people, and you could smell the deep fried chips, the fries. and it was just people. It's just an addiction, you know, and that's a great pickup. So this is your number one top aging food, right?
Yeah, well, along with all the additives, and food colorings and things that are not food, they're not food. But, of course, our wheat products are also, everybody has gluten intolerances. But many of these intolerances are because of the way we grow our wheat. And much of our wheat is sprayed with glyphosate before it is harvested. And it's force grown. And I toured all over Italy and at the Slow Food Conference in 2006. And I went to all the olive oil, every single olive oil press I could find. Wow, that was so delicious. But I was explained by a scientist there that grows that they do not force their gluten. They don't force their wheat to grow like we do. And there's a forcing method that makes it sticky. And that's another subject that I probably couldn't speak very powerfully about, but that's the difference. So this is why it's so hard for so many people. Yeah.
It is. And there's so much processed oils and refined wheat products, are two of some of the most ubiquitous products in the food landscape that could be potentially deleterious to health. Any other nasties, any other foods that people should be avoiding if they're looking to age gracefully?
Absolutely. And that would be animal foods, that aren't grass fed, that are grown by eating GMO corn and crops, the chickens. They are so polluted. They are so not healthy. And just the GMO situation, I know many, many people that just get off GMO foods. That's another approach, and their health changes dramatically. So I think, many of our fast food places, this is what they have. So you're either getting like at fast food, you're getting really bad quality of meat, and you're getting the bad fats. So there you have the two biggest, I think, problems. And there's a taste, in flavor that people get very used to. I mean, if I were to eat like a French fry or something like that, to me, I can taste that bad fat instantly, and it's just ugh. but they're very addicted to it, and so I would say that is our bad, toxic, GMO-fed animal foods.
Wow. Well, you heard it here first, people. Susan Campbell is telling us the truth, the facts. So vegetable oils, number one. Number two would be fried foods as well, with those vegetable oils, and all the additives and the processed foods and the colorings was another one. Then there was animal products, and also gluten and refined wheat products where they have the glyphosate sprayed on those products, and also fast foods as well, where they're poor quality animal products and a lot of deep fried foods. So avoid those foods if you want to age gracefully. I love it. Great suggestions. I'd maybe also add, and you mentioned GMO foods as well, which is a big one. I'd also potentially add processed refined sugar. I mean, I know that Dr. Mark Hyman, who teaches this program, he talks a lot about that in terms of how it can accelerate aging. So I think that makes sense. It makes sense to include.
I agree. Yep. Just didn't get
Excellent.
that far yet, but that's next. And, who knows what order they're in, because they're all together. I couldn't say one's more important than the other. Yeah, the sugar is a terrible situation. And most your sugary desserts and ice creams and things like that, and candy and all of these munchy foods, they have a combination of many of these. They'll have the very poor quality of dairy, all the additives, lots of the sugar and the bad fats all in one.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, if you think about it in that way, if you look at a standard off-the-shelf chocolate bar or a high-sugar snack, there's vegetable oil, right? There's processed refined sugar, there's colors, there's additives, potentially GMO in there. Wow. We're killing ourselves, mouthful by mouthful. But let's turn
It's
the
like,
let's
now
turn the
what?
ship. Yeah, let's turn the ship around on this conversation a little bit. Let's look into some specifics in terms of what type of foods can we eat, or that you recommend, that really pack a punch when it comes to reducing the effects of aging and chronic disease.
Well, let's take the one you said first, sugar. You
Mhm.
know, so this is, we just painted a dismal picture. And the truth is, there is this abundance of amazing food that you can really enjoy. So, shall we start with fats then? Let's say.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go with
You,
healthy fats. Go.
yeah, there's olive oil, of course, and ghee, which is a clarified butter, again from grass-fed cows. Now, let's remember where our butter and our animal foods come from. This is
Mhm.
vitally important. So we have ghee, a very good high-quality olive oil, coconut oil, um, and some people cook a lot with avocado oil. I'm particularly not a fan of cooking with hardly any oils at all. I'll cook with a little olive
Mm,
oil. And then there's some very high quality flax oils out there as well. And those are kind of the top three or four, and that's really all you need. And then you can also,
nice.
in really looking at fats, you've got your nuts and seeds.
Mhm. So one thing you just said there, Susan, which I'd like for you to touch on, is that you don't, and you're really a chef in the way that you are, the way that you move, the way that you have done your shows, and you're fantastic in the kitchen. But you said something there. You said you very rarely cook with oil. This is very intriguing because a lot of people cook with a lot of oil, vegetable oil. They might go, well, then I'll use a lot of olive oil. They use butter or ghee. But you're suggesting some of these oils can be healthy at some level in the diet, let's say, but that you don't often cook with them. Why don't you cook with them?
Well, because when you cook with them, you alter their molecular structure. And if you're altering their structure, you're no longer getting the benefit. You're turning it into one of those dead oils, or, an oil that just accumulates rather than absorb. That's one thing. And I probably didn't say that the best I could. But secondly, you're depriving yourself of the highest quality that this oil can give you, the highest nutritional element. So you don't want to deprive yourself. That's number one. You really want to nourish yourself and think about it in that way. I mean, this is your prized possession. This is what you're going to live the rest of your life with. So that's kind of the way I look at it. So I don't cook with them because when I started my DVD series, it became, I don't know if you remember or not, but I called it a la oils. And I will steam my veggies, and then I pour my oil on after. And this way, the oil actually has a much better flavor, I think. And the vegetables still have their own flavor rather than being coated with an oil. Because I'll go to somebody's house and have a stir fry, and everything tastes like the oil. And it's rich, and it might be really good. But if you put the oil on after, a really good, like high lignin flax oil that's got a lot of flavor, and or an olive oil. I just love olive oil or ghee on my steamed vegetables and salt and pepper, and they're just delicious. And I like my vegetables kind of wet if I'm not having them, uh, if I'm not having them fried or anything like that. But I like them steamed. Yeah, I like them kind of wet.
Nice. Great. And then excellent suggestions. And I think a little groundbreaking, because I think a lot of people will say that they eat healthy, but they're still frying a lot. They're still using a lot of oil to cook. And then, like you said, you're changing the oil and it's accumulating in the body as opposed to being absorbed. And that's a big thing for a lot of people to hear, I think.
And we need them so much for our skin, the quality of our skin, for our elimination. We really need good fats. That's why they're called essential fats. We must have
Mm.
them. Another place to get them, when I said nuts and seeds, is I think one of my very first recipes was grinding up sesame seeds. You can grind up pumpkin seeds as well, and you grind them into a powder really easily in a coffee grinder. and you've got this wonderful powder that has this delicious flavor, and you can sprinkle it on top of your vegetables, and then add a little oil or a little butter or a little ghee and a little salt and pepper, and you've got this instant sauce, and it's so simple and it's so nourishing.
I love that. What a great idea. So, can we talk it through again? Sesame and pepita in like a coffee grinder, and then you're adding in an olive oil or a flax oil on top with some salt. Is that correct?
That's correct, but you don't like just do one of them. Let's say we're making a baked yam, and we take the baked yam out, and we have the ground up sesame seeds, and I usually grind quite a few, and get the hulled ones, HULLED, hulled sesame seeds, so they're white, and they make this delicious nutty powder. And I keep a jar in my fridge because they will go rancid over time. Because remember, these are your essential fats, and they're very sensitive to light and heat. So, they're going to oxidize. They're going to oxidize over time and get that same rancid flavor. So you want to keep them fresh. So you could be doing the same thing to a steamed pile of Swiss chard or a combination of vegetables. And then pour your oil or your ghee on top and your salt and pepper. And you just have this wonderful mixture of nutty flavors. And it's so easy. And it's rich and satisfying.
Yeah, it's so true. Some of the expert teachers inside the nutrition certification program talk about consuming fats from whole food sources as probably the top idea in terms of fat consumption. So what are some other types of foods that, now that we're talking about fat, what are some of the types of foods that you think that you eat a lot that you think have the best benefit for overall human health?
It is in relationship to fats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it was nuts and seeds, definitely, and a variety. And the wonderful thing, and this is another brings on another subject, but with these nuts and seeds and like even hemp granules, hemp, almonds, and all of these, they make wonderful milks. And making your own nut milks is so easy and such a great source of fats. And it doesn't just have to be on cereal. I mean, you can always include them in a smoothie or just have a glass, nice cold hemp milk, which I love. So I would say that fats in your nuts and seeds, but in a variety of different forms. You can make the milk, you can ground them up into powders, you can include them into dressings. They make rich, salad dressings. And then of course I enjoy sardines that are sustainably raised. I eat sardines a couple times a week, and then grass-fed beef. And the beef situation and animal products are so personal to many people for many reasons. I fortunately have some incredible growers here on the island, and so it's very, very. We're only getting certain kinds of beef, and I make quite a bit of bone broth from the bones that they give me, and they really work with a lot of my clients in digestive issues, and it's very soothing, the bone broth, and it has a lot of protein in it, and it's easy. It's what we call hydrophilic. It helps absorption, so that's a little bit more of a deeper subject into that. But those are the areas I think that we're going to get our best fats. And of course, grass-fed beef doesn't have a lot of fat in it, so it's not really the key source.
Great suggestions. I love that. Healthy fat, so important. And it's such a transition. I'm so glad we're here and having this conversation, because 30 years ago, in the 80s, we were not having this conversation. The conversation was that fat is bad and that we got put onto margarine and vegetable oils. And that was the big change that happened 30, 40 years ago. But we're suffering in so many ways the consequences of that today, with the rates of obesity and heart disease and diabetes and poor quality aging, let's say, because we're rancid. We're storing these fats in our bodies. So what other types of foods? So we've spoken about fat. what other types of foods or food categories and specifics would you recommend to people to add into their diet?
Well, it goes without saying, vegetables. And then I think other than vegetables and a variety of fruits and colors and antioxidant rich food and hydrating foods that are full of good water and minerals, is your sugars. And that's just another area. And I could go into more into the antioxidants and vegetables. I think a lot of people have a hard time eating a lot of vegetables. I myself do sometimes. And so I'm a really big fan of green smoothies, and not so much green smoothies that are with a bunch of sugar and bananas. I don't call those green smoothies. Let's take a cucumber and celery. These foods are so high in these mineral salts that we need. Cucumbers are great for cleansing the kidneys and the bowels. And they provide even a lot of B vitamins. But I'm not going to eat a whole cucumber every day. So I find that making a green smoothie, in addition to enjoying steamed vegetables for dinner, I usually eat a lot of oatmeal. I love with blueberries and fruits and everything in the morning. But getting back to the veggies, I like to make green smoothies. And my green smoothie is celery, cucumber, an apple that gives it a little sweetness, and maybe some ginger and lemon. And that's it. And I usually make a big blender of that. And if I don't drink the whole thing in a day, it can last me for 2 days. Because much of the time we don't have time to eat all that and chew all that. And I hate to say that, that sounds terrible, but we do live certain lives, and we need to have some convenience, and we need to put it in our life in a way that we're going to consume it, because our body needs it. It absolutely needs it, and it's going to thrive with it.
Powerful, great suggestions, and yeah, I think transitioning to green smoothies with some bananas or something might be a good start for people. But then, like you said, those fresh smoothies that are more water based can be really nice as well, with the lime and then turmeric or ginger to add in there is very, very
Yeah.
powerful. Okay, so
The apple is key.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. The apple adds the freshness. And of course, with the smoothie, you're also getting the fiber. So it does help with the blood sugar regulation as well, which is great. What other food? So we've spoken about fats and vegetables. Anything else you want to mention here in categories or types of foods or specific foods that you think are the most powerful?
Well, let's talk about sugar a little bit, because everyone does love sugar, and we all love something sweet. So I enjoy raw honey very much from our area. It's a very powerful food to eat, that if the bees have all been fed in the area that you live in. So buying local honey is very, very wonderful, and maple syrup. And so this is a way that you can enjoy some sweet foods. I think that's really important. We get plenty of fiber with all of our vegetables. We talked a little bit about good fats. I guess that's really about it. The rest is just methods. There are just so many different methods. And I would say raw food is really cool to learn how to make raw food desserts. It's you just learn that because you can buy most sprouts nowadays. You don't have to do too much of your own sprouting. But learning to make raw food desserts will satisfy your sweet and fat tooth and salty tooth, because they all go together. It's usually it's salty and it's fatty and it's sweet. And you can make the most delicious desserts and sorbets so easily that will satisfy that. And also, it's impossible to overeat them. Many people want to lose weight, and as they get older, we're a little more sedentary, so we tend to gain weight a little easier, particularly if we're having arthritis or any kind of problems. But we still want to eat rich food, and raw food desserts are just incredible because it is impossible to overeat them. Whereas your processed desserts and things like that are highly addictive. And so if you are having a struggle, I think learning raw food desserts is a really great way to go. Because then you get your good fats. And your sugar. Yeah.
It's true. And you're getting the fats, there's nuts, there's seeds in there, and hopefully they're soaked and prepared in a way that can make them more easy to digest. And then you've got healthy sugars and there's fiber in there, which slows down the uptake of the sugar and the absorption. So I love raw food desserts as well. And I'm glad that you recommended that because it's a great way for people to be able to still feel like they're having fun as well. I think that when we take away too much of the fun and sweetness out of life and out of our diet, it can be a little bland. So I'm glad that you recommended that. Maybe we could talk a little about sweets. Like, what are some of your favorite quick little hacks when it comes to making desserts, or your favorite go-to raw food dessert that you might be able to explain to us on this call right now?
Well, you made me think while you were talking. I thought of the paleo culinary method too, makes some great desserts because they use almond flours. And nobody likes a good cake more than I do. I love a good baked cake, and getting away a little bit from raw food. But yeah, so the other night I just made some bread, and it was from a package, but it was a paleo blend, and it had almond flour and tapioca flour and a few other things. I added the flax seeds as an egg replacer because I didn't have eggs at the time. But anyway, I threw a bunch of raisins in it and a bunch of walnuts in it and baked this delicious bread. And then I put ghee on it, and I had honey stand. I made a honey butter with ghee, and I took it to a potluck, and everyone just loved it. And it was really considered healthy, you know. But so there are these opportunities now with the paleo mixtures, so that you don't have to buy all the flours. But if you want to learn that method of baking, that's a great dessert. When you're using the good fats and you're using the natural sugars. But in answer to your question, my favorite raw food dessert is just sorbets because I love ice cream. So, just having frozen bananas in the freezer and frozen other fruit and just throwing them in my food processor, maybe a little juice. Most of the time I don't even need any juice, and maybe some mint leaves or whatever you have, and it blends up so quickly, and it's effortless, really effortless. So that's my favorite.
Nice. I love that too. So beautiful. So one other topic I want to talk about, which I have on just having the top of my mind here, is this: when you spoke about the smoothies before and
But
cucumbers. Yes, please.
mm, oh yeah, I just remembered we probably should insert fermented foods.
Oh, great. Let's talk about fermented foods.
Okay, so another food that's really important to include is fermented foods. And my favorite is just a blend of fermented vegetables, and beet kvass. I just love beet kvass, but a lot of people aren't as familiar with it as they are just sauerkraut or live fermented vegetables. And the way that I make them, I made them here on Maui for quite a while and sold them at the swap meet, or not the swap meet, but the farmer's market. And what I did was I created blends, and in my DVD series, I make a blend. So it's not just sauerkraut. I think it's important for people, if they want to learn to make them, if they don't like sauerkraut, you can go beyond sauerkraut and make like putting carrots and onions and jalapenos or beets and different vegetables. Your cabbage is a base. But there's wonderful recipes that you can make, and just throw in your favorite veggies and let them ferment naturally on their own. And they're just wonderful to have as a condiment with all your meals. And beet kvass is simply, beets with an inoculant, some sort of starter or whey. Some people use whey. I can get local whey here, very, very healthy local whey from goats. So that works for me. And anyway, and you just make this beautiful beverage that looks like wine, but it's just a fermented beet juice. And I put ginger in it. That's one of my favorites.
Nice. Nice. So tell me the process, could you please, for people that don't know this. So do you juice the beets first, or do you just chop them up small and put them with water? or what do you do?
You take a beet and you wash it, but you do not peel it because there's a lot of bacteria in the peelings. And you cut them up small, but not too small. I would say the size of like a marble, just a little, like about like that. If they get too small, they'll ferment too quickly. And if they're too big, you won't get enough out of them. So let's say you took a large canning jar and you would fill it about a third of the way. Add your water and your starter, or a little bit away can be your starter too. And you let it sit. You put the lid on, you let it sit for like a week. I like to let it sit for at least a week. And it's not bubbly and fermenty
And
like you would.
and people can get whey from the top of their yogurt as well, right? The liquid at the
Correct.
top of the yogurt.
Correct.
And when you do it, do you put like a muslin cloth on top so it can breathe, or do you cap it off?
I cap it off. Yeah. I have done both, and I find that they both work, but it's better not to let any air get into it. So you can buy these great fermented tops now that have a valve that air goes out, but it doesn't come in. But you can, because this doesn't blow up, it doesn't like ferment and blow up, you can just cap it off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really great if you
Nice.
put like lemongrass.
And how long do you leave it for?
Yeah. I was just saying it's really good if you want to add ginger to it. I always add ginger to mine. And you leave it for a week.
Fabulous. Cool. And then you strain it, or you just drink the liquid off the top, or what? Tell me.
No, sorry, we've got to get to the rest. Okay. You strain it, and you can use the beets in a salad. You can cook them. They'll have a little bit different flavor. Or you can fill the jar and start over and let it go a second time and include some of the liquid. I have found that doesn't work really well for me because it's usually weaker and I like it strong. It's like a red wine. You really want to have some substance to it. And beets have that potential. They're very earthy. I usually take those beets and make a yummy salad out of them because they're raw, but they've been fermented. And you can also steam them, but I like to put them in a raw salad.
Nice. A great suggestion on the fermented foods. I 100% agree. And there's a growing amount of evidence that supporting our gut bacteria is profound, not only for our immunity and for reducing inflammation, but also our skin because of the gut-brain connection. So glad we brought that up. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was that you were speaking about cucumbers before being very powerful. And I know that David Wolfe has spoken always about cucumbers as being this incredible food because it's really powerful for hydration, but also for silica, for the skin. But then there's a concept that I've heard you talk about called eating your hydration. Can you explain this to me a little bit and how important hydration is potentially in this graceful aging equation?
Well, where most of us are very dehydrated. And let's say that we are eating a lot of chips and a lot of bad foods and not really putting in watery foods like cucumbers, apples, papayas, bananas, all of them. I mean, oranges, lemons, limes, these all foods have an abundance of water in them. So if we're not eating those kind of foods and we are eating a lot of cooked and processed foods, and if we think we're just going to guzzle water and it's going to absorb, most of the time it will not, because we're devoid of the minerals and all of the cell salts that make up our tissues and our bones and every part of us. And we're learning now that hydration, the right kind of hydration in the cell, because the cell actually has, some of the gel state of water, which is our master communicator in our microbiome. This gel state of water in every single one of our cells is what is communicating to our other cells. So it is so vital that we have excellent hydration. I think it's vital to our joints, to how we're lubricating, along with our good fats like we talked about. So I think it's really important to eat your hydration. Eat as much of these cucumbers and celery and apples. And this is why I do a green smoothie, because otherwise the day will go by and I haven't chomped on a piece of celery. I might, but it kind of doesn't happen. And so I think we have to think like this, is like, oh, an apple would be really good for me to have right now, even though I may not be totally in the mood or I need a little snack. Once you kind of bite into it, it really works. And this way you're hydrating yourself. Excellent water is also, of course, really important. We all know that, but just drinking a lot of water without feeding yourself the watery foods that are in their wholeness, that's going to be much more powerful.
Beautiful. I love it. Great. And no to toxic tap water, or filtering your tap water or spring water. What do you do at your house? You filter your water?
I do filter my water. I have a big Berkey. But my favorite thing to do, and I do it very often, is I happen to have a spring here. There's an underground aquifer that has incredible water, and I haul my water. We go to the Eau Valley and fill up about 8 jars. I get a good workout and bring it home. We also have a couple stores here now on Maui that have incredible spiralized water systems built into their store, and you can go fill it up. But other than that, at home for most of my use, I have to use a filtered water if I can't get live living spring water. And a shower filter too.
Yes, of course. This is something that's so big and so important. I know I live part of the year in Vanuatu, which is a tropical island, and their tap water is not so good, but they have some great aquifer water and some great springs, but also some great rainwater as well that you can collect. And I noticed when we moved house, we were using tap water for the shower in the existing house, and you could see when the water dried on the glass, it was so much calcium, and the water was really like not good for my hair or my skin. And you could see when it dried, it created this film, and on the bottom of a kettle or a stove, when you'd boil water, it would be, calcify. But then moving to the new house, we've got this incredible freshwater rainwater system, and then we filter it and we clean it, and then we bring it into the house, and it's so soft and it's so much better, and makes a huge difference. So filtering your shower water in particular, of course your drinking water, and making sure that's as pure as possible, this can be really profound.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And we have the same thing here. We have a very poor quality of water. All the glasses, I don't even know how to get them clean. I think there's something I can buy to do that, but yeah.
Well, sometimes we would soak it in vinegar or put some vinegar in the kettle to clean it out. But yeah, that can help a little bit. So throughout our conversation today, Susan, you've spoken a lot about how food is really important, of course, but then you said something at the start of our conversation which really struck a chord with me. It was about our relationship to food and some, I guess, non-food practices for healthy aging. So what could you say about our relationship to food, or some of the things that people could consider outside of the kitchen or the dining table that could contribute to healthy aging and healthy lifestyle?
Well, touching on the relationship, I think is a nature thing, to really get in touch with who you are on this planet. The air you breathe, the food you eat, and really understanding that we are not these alive things that walk on top of the earth. We are the earth. And we have the ability to really think back on ourselves and really to reflect and to get in touch with that, and to really stand in nature and be with nature and understand, who you're breathing, what you're breathing. I mean, this is profound. And when I really discovered this, it was a deep spiritual experience, but it changed my life forever, because I really understood who I was here. I wasn't separate from it. And that just makes a huge difference. And it's something that I think is a little bit hard to explain. It's almost like you have to experience it. And I sometimes work with my clients and we do a meditation on a stream. you might have a stream on a mountaintop that's going down, and and throw a bunch of junk into the little place where it makes a pond. And pretty soon that pond will probably clean that junk up because it self regenerates. This is what we do, and this is what our bodies do when we give it the right fuel. It will regenerate most of the time if we haven't taken it too far. Well, we wouldn't continually throw crap into the stream or into the pond. We wouldn't continue to do it because pretty soon it's going to get clogged. And we are the same thing. We are that stream. And I think that really understanding this, that when you're eating really poor foods, you are just clogging up your stream. And so this relationship to really know that your body is much like the earth and the streams and the rivers and all the rocks and soil. This is what we're made of. So this is just really important to have. And I would say, in addition to that, everything springs forth from that relationship. Then you can honor your body and really value eating well, because it's a gift, it's a pleasure, it's right relationship with who we are, where we are at this time in our lives. And the second thing would be to move. It's really important to move and to breathe. And this is why many people do yoga and get so much out of yoga, because they're learning to move and breathe together consciously. But even if you're not doing yoga, dance, play, be with others. Playing and connecting is really important. And so many times when we get to do classes, we get to have that common experience together. But that's really an added thing that I would add is connecting and playing and being in community is really important as we age. We need each other. And we also need a strong spiritual practice, I think, that helps us to move through life, because I don't think any of us are going to go through it unscathed. We're going to have stresses. We're going to probably have illnesses. Things are going to happen. And like when I got sick a few years ago, I got shingles, and everyone said to me, "Oh, you eat so healthy. Why would you get sick?" Who knows? It could have been a lot of stress, but it's probably going to happen. So I think that it's vital that we look ahead. And I love that you say aging gracefully, because grace is really the divine. It's defined as the divine influence for the regeneration and sanctification of a person. So it just shows that it's this beautiful sanctification that is going to regenerate you, and that's grace, if you can really look at your life that way. So that's part of that relationship.
Amazing. What a beautiful parting thoughts to leave us with, Susan. So great to connect with you again. And I love your philosophy around food and health. And I'm certain there's going to be so many takeaways that people are going to have from this conversation today. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and time with the Food
It's my
Matters
pleasure.
community again.
I'd like to tell you one word that I use. Thank you, James. Talking about grace, I'd like to add one more thing, if you want it, is there's a word in the Hawaiian language called imiola. And imi means to drive or to seek or to pursue. And ola means health and well-being. So imiola is the act of striving to end your life with the highest form of well-being possible. And so this is my honorable kind of quest, if you say so, is to really help people achieve imiola and seek the highest form of well-being at the end of their life, rather than it being something that we're not conscious to. We're hooked up on tubes. We're deathly sick. We are in pain. Yes, that's going to happen to some of us, but we can seek something else.
Wow, what a beautiful idea to aim towards. What a beautiful suggestion. Thank you for adding that, Susan. So great to chat. And thank you for your wisdom and your insights. I really appreciate our conversation today.
Me too. It was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So yes, thank you everyone for listening. I really enjoyed that talk. I hope you did too. And there will be more of these on the Food Matters podcast. So head to foodmatters.com and see you again.